Right. So I think we can get started as last few people start to join. I'll let them in. So thank you everyone for joining today. We're excited to be presenting webinar 5 of the School Breakfast Challenge webinar series today, Understanding Your Data. Before we begin, can everyone just take a minute to put your name, title, what school you're with, or what organization you're with in the chat? Thank you. My name is Karen Rice. I'm the Child Nutrition Manager at New Hampshire Hunger Solutions, and I will be helping to present today's webinar along with Jessica Gorin, the Social Impact and Development Director at New Hampshire Hunger Solutions, and Riona Kaur, the Deputy Director at New Hampshire Hunger Solutions. So today's webinar, it should be a little under 30 minutes. We'll leave some time at the end for questions and comments. So let's get started. So during today's webinar, we'll be calculating participation data, distinguishing between free and reduced and overall participation, determining potential revenue with increased participation, and determining ways for healthy meals for all for New Hampshire children. And we'll also be going over some tools and resources. And so now I will pass it over to Riona.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. So Jessica and I will be presenting the last of the slides for you all today. So as you may or may not know, there's a lot of types of meal data that Hunger Solutions likes to look at. And we want you all to help understand your specific data for your schools and your districts. And we will link everything afterwards in the email for you. So you can get your free reduced meal participation data by district, school, and over 50% free reduced eligibility. And those are all linked for you directly here in our slideshow presentation. You also can receive your paid meal participation, but the number one priority that we do want to look at is your school breakfast participation, since we're doing the school breakfast challenge. And this is your total population in your free reduced breakfast per free reduced lunch. So we like to compare those children in your schools and your districts that are receiving free reduced lunch. And out of that percentage, how many are participating in school breakfast? So if you can think of it this way, all of those children would be free and reduced because of the free and reduced meals applications. We really want that percentage to be increased. So what are the barriers and how are we going to increase that participation number? Increased participation can also increase your school revenues. So school breakfast specifically can increase your revenue within your school meal budget. And having more participating in the school breakfast can help your school meal debt at the end of the year. New Hampshire Hunger Solutions is here to support you in your school meal budgets, to understand your revenues and how we can offset your budget with other tools and resources that we can see at the end of this slideshow. We also use the CEP provisions and the calculations. So Jessica, myself, and Karen can help any school understand if they're CEP eligible and under which provision they could be eligible. And we understand that USDA has a lot of restrictions and a lot of items to look at while doing the calculations. And in this presentation, we do want you to try to understand your data. And if you can't, we would love to sit with you individually to understand your data more specifically. Next slide.
So as Fiona was talking about, we really want to look at the free and reduced eligible students that are participating in school lunch and how many of those are also participating in school breakfast. So the FRAC goal, which is the Food Research and Action Center, there are nationwide lead advocates. They came up with this formula to show the goal that we're looking for to adequately feed kids in school. So for every 100 free and reduced eligible students participating in school lunch, we'd like to see 70 free and reduced eligible students participating in school breakfast. And when we've hit that goal, we know that we are feeding the most kids we can who are eligible and are going to school hungry. New Hampshire is 47th nationally when you use this calculation. So when FRAC does a breakfast scorecard, they use this calculation. They look at all the schools around the country, all the states around the country, and New Hampshire is 47th when you use this calculation.
Did you say next slide, Jess?
Yeah,
Okay.
next slide, sorry. That was quiet, maybe. So this is an example using the 2022-2023 free and reduced breakfast and free and reduced lunch participation for the whole state of New Hampshire. So we take the total free and reduced breakfast number. Those are the total number of meals served throughout the whole state was 1,971,775. And we divide that by the total of free and reduced lunches that were served. And that gives us our free and reduced breakfast participation, percent free and reduced breakfast participation per free and reduced lunch participation. And so you can see in New Hampshire, we're at 47.5%. So we have a ways to go before we hit that 70% as a state and hit that magic FRAC number. Next. I think we can pause for questions. That's okay. Do you have any questions on that number?
How this data is used for reimbursement. If you are signed up for the National School Lunch Program, we can use the data for reimbursement for meals in your school, or New Hampshire Education uses the data. Also for the school breakfast program, summer food service program reimbursement in the CEP provisions, provision 1, 2, and 3. There's also healthy school meal incentives compared to the data, and in the severe need population, which is over 50% free and reduced, we can increase federal and state education funding. Summer meals area eligibility are also mapped through the 50% free and reduced meal applications. There's also programs such as the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable program that you may or may not know of, and the after school snack program that can have reimbursement rates depending on your data collection. Next.
So I'm going to do a slight in-depth discussion about CEP calculations, but we are going to host another webinar specifically on CEP and the 3 different provisions that allow schools to offer free school meals to all and be reimbursed by the federal government. But CEP just recently had a change in its law. So it used to be that 40% direct certification from SNAP, TANF, foster care, the McKinney-Vito Homelessness Act would qualify a school for CEP, and they could calculate their reimbursements from there. They have now increased that direct certification to 25%. So it's gone from 40% direct certification to 25% direct certification, which now means that we've gone from 13 schools in New Hampshire being eligible to about 90 schools in New Hampshire being eligible for the community eligibility provision. So we use this number 40%, just as about the state average for direct certification. We multiplied, so that 40% direct certification gets multiplied by 1.6, and that equals 64%. So that 64% of the meals served are reimbursed at the federal free reimbursement rate. And we also call this, or AKA, otherwise known as, the identified student percentage. And you'll hear people talk about your ISP. So 64% is that identified student percentage, or ISP. That is what we use as our number to calculate what our free reimbursement rates are from the federal government if we participate in CEP. Next. So here's that deep dive that we talked about. So we're going to take, for CEP reimbursements, we're going to take your number, we're going to use the example of a school that has 500 total students, and we're serving them 65% of them breakfast and lunch. We're just making this an even number to keep it simple. That means that we would serve about 325 breakfasts and 325 lunches per day. We're going to take the number of meals served and multiply it by that ISP number that we calculated before. That's 64%. And then we're going to multiply it for breakfast times the breakfast federal free reimbursement rate, which is $2.73 for a severe needs school. So that school would have over 50% free and reduced eligibility. And that comes out to $567.84 per day. But there's more. For the remainder of the students who are participating, so we're going to take the ISP, we're going to take the number 100, so the total amount, subtract it by the ISP, which is 64%, and we're going to come up with 36%. These are the percent of students that are reimbursed at the federal paid reimbursement rate. So they won't get the full reimbursement at the free rate, but they'll get the paid reimbursement rate. So we're going to take that same 325 and multiply it by 36%. And then we're going to multiply that by 38%, which is the federal paid reimbursement rate. And for those meals, we are going to be reimbursed $44.46. So per day for breakfast, using these numbers, we're going to be reimbursed $612.30 for breakfast only. For lunch, we're going to plug in those same numbers, but we're going to use the federal free reimbursement rate for lunch, which is $4.35. And we are going to use the federal paid reimbursement rate for lunch using those same numbers, which is 50 cents. And total, we're going to come up with lunch being $963.30 per day. When we multiply this by 180 school days per year, this school district, our example school district, would be making $283,608 for that school year offering CEP. And I'm just going to pause here for questions because that was a lot of math, and I want to see if anybody has any questions about how we would use participation data or any questions about CEP.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
With the CEP reimbursements, is that per district or per school?
It varies. So they start off with per school.
Okay.
Sometimes the district average will be over that 25%. So let's take, for instance, Manchester. Manchester is, I think their direct certification rate is almost 40%. Okay. So they could apply as a whole district if they wanted to. Okay. Financially, it could be advantageous for them, depending on the size of each school, to combine schools together, ones that have higher direct certification rates with others that might not quite make it, because then they get reimbursed. They can get reimbursed at a higher rate than taking the average for the whole district. Okay. So you can do grouping, and that's what we'll get into in like a deeper conversation, but you can combine schools. So if you have a school that's at like 40% direct certification and another one that's at, let's say like 24, you could combine that 40 and 24 together to make both schools eligible.
Okay, because I'm the director down in Derry, and I have 7 schools, and I'm thinking after hearing this, I know that the percentages had changed, and I'm wondering now if one of my schools may actually qualify. I guess this is my 3rd year as a director. I've never really had to deal with this because I went through the whole COVID, and then everyone was free at that point, and obviously I'm kind of working my way into things, and we've with the increase up to the 40%, obviously that wasn't anything that would have affected us, around the 25%, but I'm thinking the 40% may actually qualify 1, possibly 2 schools. So I'll have to look into that a little bit further.
We have the list of all of the schools and their eligibility, and we've actually calculated these numbers out for all the schools in New Hampshire. So we can take a look at these, and then we can also do some combination calculations for you, Christina, so that we can
Okay, yeah, that'd be great.
take a look. So I see Riona shaking her head. So
Yeah.
we can set up a meeting.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
So I know this is a lot of math, a lot of trying to understand the federal requirements, but like Jessica said, we have already done it all. And our calculations have been vetted from FRAC. So we have all your calculations specifically for all the schools in New Hampshire. So we would love to sit down and talk to you if you feel like your percentage is somewhere that could be CEP eligible. And
Okay.
of course, there's other provisions. So any one of you who are on today or spreading the news to administration, we can definitely sit down and have more in-depth conversations.
Okay, thank you.
Don't feel like you have to get a headache for doing math today.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, math isn't my favorite, that's for sure.
Yeah, and we have spreadsheets that do this for us. So I mean, we broke this one down. All of our stuff's in spreadsheets.
Okay, great.
And I'll say too, one thing that can be helpful is for food service directors to keep in mind is we know that there are labor costs included in this. So we would want to know your labor costs and take a look at, like, if you're serving more meals, do you end up reducing your labor costs and save money that way? Those are things that aren't included in these calculations. So we
Okay.
do understand that those are a factor and would like to, one thing that is a gift from the pandemic was that free schools had free school meals for all when schools were back in session full time. And so we were able to calculate based on what it looks like when all the kids are in school and school meals are free for all, and compare it to like this most recent year, the 2022-23 school year, when school meals were no longer free for all, but schools were back in session as normal. So we have some good numbers to use so that we can get some good estimates.
Okay, great.
Ben, did you have a question?
Me?
Yeah.
No,
I
no,
wasn't sure. Okay.
sorry. I was wiping my
Okay.
eyes. Sorry, no, I did not.
No, I was just looking at mutes. So no worries. Thank you. Okay, next.
So this slide just shows you our goals at New Hampshire Hunger Solutions and how the data can be used to make policy change in advocacy efforts. This is our internal roadmap to healthy school meals for all in New Hampshire. It's our end goal. So we do wish to get here one day, one year, and we're doing all those steps to make it. We did have to split the graphic down, so bear with me here. So right now we're trying to get the Hunger Free New Hampshire Act passed. It is in legislation SB 499. Please sign up for our advocacy emails on our website so you can, if you want to write testimonies or testify, that would be great. Our next, and this doesn't go in any order, it is just our steps to get there. We want to do the CEP promotion, which we're doing now. So we have the calculations. We want to continue the conversation with administration as well as those food service directors to educate and also do the calculations in the application process for CEP promotion in schools. The next is Medicaid direct certification, which there is some legislation attempting to be passed in current session. Medicaid direct certification, the advocacy action to try to get those who are participating in the Medicaid insurance programs to be free reduced meals. New Hampshire Hunger Solutions also is doing tons of education and advocacy, public education at local, state, federal levels, trying to help everyone understand the importance of free meals, healthy free meals for all in New Hampshire. And then we would take legislative action, and hopefully our end goal would be those, ooh, I see a typo, healthy school meals for all in New Hampshire. And this is better known as universal meals, but we are trying to change that to healthy school meals for all. Next slide. These are some of the communication strategies that we're using. To the far right, we have our New Hampshire Hunger Solutions work. We give these presentations to anyone who wants to hear us speak. So we can give the State of Hunger presentation to anyone, school boards, school administrators, teachers, staff meetings, you name it. We can come in and chat. We like to break down some parent education to help parents understand that there is USDA regulations around school meals. It is healthy. And then how we could eating the school meals or eating meals at school can increase school dollars to help purchase more supplies. So we kind of break it down that way. And then the Department of New Hampshire Education, the Department of Education has some great resources on their website that you can use for parent education in newsletters, flyers. They also have some buffets, so 30-minute YouTube tutorials on everything. So you name it, it is all listed on their website. And I believe on the next slide, we have it all listed. Yeah, your school meal toolbox. There's our superheroes for the school breakfast challenge. And we have a lot of tools and resources. You can click on the links. We have them all linked. FRAC data tool is a great resource. You may have to sign up for that one. We have the Food Nutrition Services Provisions 1, 2, and 3 linked. New Hampshire Ed overview of CEP. This was the most recent, November 15th last year. There's the paid lunch equity tool, our New Hampshire Hunger Solutions technical assistants. That is me, Karyn, and Jessica. We want to be your technical assistants for understanding your data, how to get better reimbursement to help reduce that school meal debt and get more kids fed in schools. We also do partner with Department of Ag. There is some grants out there. So if you provide community meals in your school or your food service director, you are providing community meals as well. You can get some infrastructure grant funding for ovens, basically anything. They have a lot of money listed there. I believe one of the schools has applied to the grant, but there's a lot of money. They want it to be gone. They don't want to give it back. And also farm to school funding and how you can leverage that funding to help your schools. So the schools can purchase directly from farmers as well. Next slide. We're going to just pause for questions. We were under 30, so that was great. We do have the next webinar. We have to be determined. We will send out the registration as well. You'll see that from Karyn. But we do want to pause. This is our child nutrition team, so feel free to ask away. We have 5. Don't be afraid to use the chat if you are in an area that you cannot speak. We understand you're busy at school.
All right, well, our emails are up there too, so feel free to email us with your questions as well. And this webinar is recorded, so we'll be sending that out with a follow-up email and the slides not long after this. Thank you all, everybody, for joining. We hope you found it useful. Please let us know if you'd like to talk in further about any of these calculations. And we look forward to seeing you at the next webinar where we'll be talking about the celebrations for School Breakfast Week. And that
Thank you.
concludes today's webinar. So thank you, everybody. Take care.
You too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.